across those roads. Reversing them at this point, I don't think reversing them is a solution, but that's just me. I think, the government should do what, it should roll out a lot of the promises that the government put on the table when they started on this journey last year, May. They've not, up till now, we've not seen a full implementation of a lot of those actions. There are a lot of wish promises in the air, and the populace are still struggling to see them. Nigerians should brace up. We're on for a long ride and a long journey. If the government does what it ought to do, maybe maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. But would there be a reversal of these actions? I do not think so. I don't think we can even afford to reverse them at this point. That ship has sailed.
All right, thank you for that, Chibuzor. Let's move on to the next headline. Don't forget, you can get your thoughts across. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981. From The Nation, Customs suspend sale of seized food items over Stampede. Uade?
So on I think last week on 20th, the customs had said that they were going to embark on the sale of seized food, and that sale kicked up on Friday, February 23rd, at the old zonal office in Lagos, and it started at 8 a.m. At 5 p.m. they had run out of the items, and the gathering there who had come to be able to get a piece of the items started a stampede to find out whether they were lying, telling the truth. And in the process, some other reports carried that about 7 people died, and the custom now had to stop that. It just goes to show the fact that there's so much hunger in the country. If within a space of 9 hours, which is your usual working period in Nigeria, all the items in the container, I don't know how many bags of rice they were, or how big they were, but it shows you the vulnerability of people in Nigeria to deal with the high cost of food. I saw a report yesterday that a bag of rice and food almost hit 90,000 naira, and that's the reality we're living in. Like Chibuzor said, the protests yesterday, we're not seeing improvement in the economy. Inflation has gone up again. Exchange rate is still dancing yo-yo-yo and so on. So that's what happened. They've had to stop it to carry out their investigations to know what happened. But in my own opinion, I think what simply happened was people wanted to get something to eat. It was going to be cheaper for them, and there was a stampede and people died. My condolences to the loved ones of those who died in the process of the stampede. And let's just hope that things will get better. And like Chibuzor said earlier, that the government will implement a number of the things that it says it's going to implement. I know they've been going on with the palliatives. I'm not the one that believes in palliatives. It just doesn't transcend to everybody. And we haven't seen the transparency. I know last week we were talking about the Minister of Finance, who said they were going to start providing the palliatives for another 12 million households. They've done 3 million already, but nobody. And one of the questions I was asking then was, have I met anybody? And the answer to that is maybe I'm not among the vulnerables.
Obviously.
We leave it at that.
All right, on to Daily Trust. A minister asks National Assembly to address issue of 2% tax for NSSEC.
So the Minister of Education was speaking to the Minister of Education was actually at the program, and he was addressing stakeholders' validation of the draft minimum standards and draft strategic plans for senior secondary school in Abuja. And he spoke about the NSSEC, that's the National Senior Secondary Education Commission. And he was asking lawmakers to push the issue of the 2% tax. Now, I've been trying to wonder what the specific issues with 2% tax. Is it that it's not being implemented, it's not being collected, it's, the parties who are supposed to, there's no backing law for the 2% tax. It's just on the wish list. Who's supposed to pay the 2% tax? Those are questions I would wish I would have been able to answer immediately on the spot. But one of the things that catches my eyes also is that he was quick to think the position or the importance of the 2%. He was quick to thank the lawmakers for helping the setup of the creation of the NSSEC. Now, one of my challenges, and this is falls on the background of, I think there was an announcement yesterday by the president about the Orasanya report and implementation and streamlining of MDAs and all that. And in this story, we're talking about the minister who is thanking the House of Assembly for creating another one of them. I think everybody should just get their ducks in order and every ducks in line, and we all should agree on what we want to do, really, because there's no point if we are trying to streamline and on the other hand somebody's creating another one, then I really don't know which direction all of us are going at this point. But the point of the 2% tax is obviously to drive infrastructure in secondary schools across the federation, and basically that's what the minister is looking to be addressed. Yes, they also talked about the implementation of the national policy on the senior secondary education and its implementation guidelines. So there's not so much to take away from this story, but what I would take away from it is that we need to understand, and the president and his ministers and everybody in the government need to understand and agree on which direction they want to go in terms of streamlining and reducing costs.
They need to add another 2% in the number of taxes that.
Yes, and also the burden of the private sector to deal with all these taxes.
And the private sector is paying.
All right, you're still listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Our analysts this morning, Uade and Chibuzor, are in. Let us know your thoughts. WhatsApp number is 0809 444 981. Let's look at some of the messages coming through. Ajayi says, it's not surprising that protests against the current hardship are increasing across the country despite police warnings. Government should be happy it's just pockets of protests that are still happening, as it could have possibly been mass protests in other countries. Francis from Ojo says, it's so tiring when our government would have good intentions and lack planning skills, statistical data to utilize the sharing of palliatives. When we all have NINs and BVNs, they should have checked the NIN details of those individuals that qualify for the palliative and send them messages only. Those deaths could have been avoided. Mina, your comment is well noted. Thank you. Okay, we'll continue the conversation on the other side. Stay with us.
I'm famous. Where is that guy said? He's still in this country.
Oh, Praise. I think he tried to release an album last year or something.
Hi, people. My name is Praise. And if you
No, Praise. Wasn't Praise. I don't know where Praise is.
Yeah,
That tried to release an album last year. That's true.
watching you.
I don't know. I've not heard from Praise in a while.
Yeah, the one that she won.
Sorry?
Directed by a masonry.
So, I don't know too much about the guy. I only know this rich and famous song.
My wife actually lives in.
When
I have no idea where he is.
cadence of
She can't give us the deeds.
Probably has. I don't think she's in contact with him.
Why is into
No, I think from universities, from uni, and all these Makodi, Abuja, Kaduna people.
the entertainment and
Well, she went to ABU's area. She's working Makodi. And then Abuja, fees, they all bumped into each other somewhere here and there.
All right, we're going back on. It's still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. Analysts are in. Uade, Chibuzor, we're still looking at the headlines and would love to get your thoughts as well. So please keep them coming. WhatsApp 0809 444 981. From Punch, Vice President Kashim Shettima unveiled the Light Up Nigeria program in the Southeast aimed at accelerating power supply in industrial clusters across the region. This headline is, well, from Punch.
This was a major event yesterday. It took such a long time, roundtable discussions and all. But I think, in my own opinion, This is one of the best things that probably happened to the Southeast if the commitment is there. Not just from the federal government or the state governments, but for the fact that those in the private sector are willing to put monies down. This coming together was organized by the Niger Delta Power Holding Company and its partners, and a number of stakeholders in the power sector were there. What I see is huge opportunities, not just for the private sector, but also for the states. I don't know how many of the states in the Southeast has their electricity policy based on the new electoral law. Electricity Act. I know there's been some amendments recently that the president signed, but like I continue to say, these are huge opportunities within the power sector for the states themselves to partner with the private sector to work out the best modalities and create a system whereby everybody is involved. Monies will flow in, power would come into those states and ensure that productivity improves. We know a number of the states that have huge potentials for what's it called, industrialization. Pharmaceuticals, we know about the pharmaceuticals, we know about one of the car assembly people, they're just enough. Even the garment industry within that space, these are huge opportunities for investors to put monies down. I just, in my opinion, yes, the federal government is pushing this, but they should go back to the basics of what the Electricity Act says in terms of putting all stakeholders together and knowing the right kind of financing that you require, and how power is not a 90-day money spinning sector. Rather, what kind of long-term investments do you need to put in? What kind of tax incentives you need to give to those who are going to put their monies into these investments and so on. But great opportunity for the Southeast, and something tells me that they will get it right.
All right, on to the Vanguard. Speaker of the Federal House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has asked the House Representatives Committee on Constitution Review to revisit some of the gender bills that were rejected in the last assembly. And from Vanguard.
So the Speaker of the House, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, yesterday was charging members of the Constitutional Review Committee to revisit several of the bills that were rejected or jettisoned by the last assembly. Now, notable among those bills were several gender-based bills, and one of them, which I find very interesting, that we're even discussing. I remember I took part of that story a while ago when they rejected that bill, and I find it still very interesting how it was rejected, which was to grant citizenships to foreign-born wives of Nigerian citizens. The bill was thrown out at the last assembly, and it just, for a modern country, I don't think it's something that we should be discussing. Really, something that should have happened, because it makes no sense if the father is Nigerian citizen, the children are Nigerian citizens by birth, but the mother is not a Nigerian citizen. For me, just defeats all logic, because as long as she's in that marriage, well, there might be other technicalities around it, but for me, it's the reason why it is why we rejected that is a bit of a challenge for me. One of the other bills was the one that sought to allocate 35% of political positions based on appointments to women. And there was another one to create special seats for women in the National Assembly and state assemblies. I'm a bit biased against having to create special seats. For me personally, I'm not sure why I sit on giving a block percentage to them. I think what needs to happen is that we do need to work on a lot of the things that maybe the idea is to try and force a change in the culture and the habits and perceptions of a lot of the male, or even larger than the male population, because the truth is The last I checked, a large chunk of our population are actually female, and a lot of the females are actually some people who are against some of these things, especially other women being in politics.
I'm not.
For whatever,
saying.
for whatever reason, I'm not a supporter of it, but I'm someone who believes that a lot of our cultures persist when women support them. I I think it's a discussion that needs to happen. I'm not so great on set percentages, but I do believe that we need to get to a point where we actually have to ask what are the barriers towards this participation. How do we leave these barriers? I know some of the parties over the last election cycles have tried to remove or try to ease the barriers in terms of funding by making some of their tickets free or largely subsidized for women. So paying 15 million for a ticket, you get it for free, or 1 million because you're a woman. And that makes a lot of sense. But it goes beyond that. It goes even the party hierarchy, how much even within the party structure. So, what happens at the assembly and the larger space is a reflection of what happens within the party structure. How many women do we have in the parties as the speakers, the secretaries of the parties? Typically, when we see women are in charge in parties, large positions in the parties, they are women leaders. So basically, they're in charge of that subset. The core of the party structure, the core of the party executive, I stand to be corrected, but you see very few women either as presidents or vice chairman of the parties, PRs or speakers of the parties. You see and that translates upwards into other spaces. So we need to move away from the point where we are giving women token positions, for them to actually give them actually positions of note in a lot of cases, and we cannot increase that foothold. So that's what I think should happen. The speaker also spoke about there were some other bills that he's action that for them are priorities. The state police and local government autonomy is one of the things he said is a priority for them. So we wait and see where some of these things, I like to see some of the debates, especially on things like state police. I know there were some discussions previously in local government autonomy, and I know some things were actually done. But I do know that there are a lot of cases in court, and some of them, interestingly, were by local government chairmen fighting against the autonomy that was granted to them.
All right, let's go on to some of the messages coming through. Uade, did you want to add something?
No,
okay. Okay, it looked like you had a bit. Gilbert says, on the current hardship in the country, if we go back to 1988, we will understand that inflation from this period till date was not controlled. Also, the Operation Feed the Nation scheme, which had one of its objectives to ensure, I beg your pardon, local food sufficiency and encourage export of food crops, has not been achieved till date. Ibrahim?
I don't think it was meant to be achieved. That's my opinion.
Ibrahim says, it's a good development that the Orosanye report is finally being implemented. Thank goodness, it's pathetic. Okay. Thank goodness. Okay, full stop missing. It's pathetic that people had to die in a bid to collect food palliatives. My concern is, why would the government be reactive and not proactive? Why would the government apply a short-term solution to a long-term problem? My heart goes to the families of the departed. Francis from Ojo says, why doesn't the federal government just allow duty-free tax importation on solar panels and put a unified price on solar panels, seeing that electricity generation is not stable enough to power the population's consumption and it's really expensive? Solar
is transmission and distribution. It's transmission really that it's not the generation.
Okay.
That hitches here and there in generation, but transmission really is.
All right, thanks for that, Uade. Let's go on to the next headline. The U.S. mission in Nigeria says over 17,000 Nigerians are currently studying in the U.S. And this headline comes from Daily Trust.
What do I say?
More money to the U.S.
Well, yeah, more money to the U.S. But if our educational systems have been over the years run down, that's what you find. Growing up in this country, I remember even in secondary schools, people from across Africa used to come to our secondary schools in Nigeria. But that's no longer the case. Instead, we're taking our children out to go and learn, even in primary school, all over the world. And it's a huge shame. The government has systematically, and this is my opinion, I always like to share my own opinion, the government has systematically reduced the level of education. I know a number of people who today are where they are because of the kind of education that they got. Teachers are not paid, schools are not, infrastructure in schools are not up to date or up to standard. And that's where we find ourselves. Everybody wants to go abroad to get a certificate, go to school and believe that, well, by doing that, I have better chances. But if you want Nigeria to grow the way it grew in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s, before we started this downturn, then you must pay attention to education. Basic education, primary, secondary school. I'm one, though I was the beneficiary of the tertiary educational system in Nigeria, but I'm one who believes that tertiary education is an option that you want to take. That's my opinion. There's so many other things you can do, and in today's world of technology, there's so many other skills and certifications that you can get to make you, if not better, if not equal to, but sometimes better than those who go to university. And these are the realities. All over the world, educational systems that are changing and structures are being revamped. So if we have 17,000 Nigerians in the US, that's just the Nigerians are the largest number of immigrant education students across the world. So when the Minister of Finance says, well, we spend how much? 4 billion every year. The question is, why do we spend 4 billion? The reason is simple. Our educational systems, if you inject that into our educational systems in Nigeria, we know what is going to happen. We know how a number of us became what we are and who we are because the government injected those kind of monies into the educational system, and that's why we're here today. So congratulations to the US for opening up more scholarships and more grants to Nigerians. Yeah, but the grants will never be up to 100 of the amount of money we have to pay every year. 17,000 Nigerians at an average of $20,000, $30,000 every year is how much?
And that's just for fees.
Yeah.
And that's just for fees.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you got fees and accommodation. So we're not even adding the feeding. But on the average, it costs at least, me knowing, it costs at least 20,000 pounds for your child to go to school in the UK.
A good school, yes.
Yeah. So the fees and the accommodation is about 16,000 pounds and another 4,000 pounds to feed.
All right, let's look at some messages. Abbas says solar panels without diodes is duty-free in Nigeria. Cisco Delgado says our menfolk will never allow women to be in sensitive positions of government for obvious reasons. Okay. From Vanguard, FG to pay youth unemployment benefits, set up consumer credit program.
Okay, so the coordinating minister for the economy, and this is one of the few times I've heard about him in recent, well, maybe personally, I've been looking out for his comments. He's disclosed that the president has directed the design of the social security and employment programs where unemployed Nigerian youth will be paid, and he disclosed this while briefing the State House. At the basically at the period of the high prices, Mr. President has committed, well, it's part of the palliatives or part of the structures. He said there's also going to be a consumer credit to alleviate the pains of the economic adjustment. Okay.
So many things.
There are so many things put into this story, as there's many stories in one. But basically, all these are aligned to basically tell us that, okay, the government is trying to do something to ease the pressure of Nigerians. A lot of things are going to be pushed. School, they have the school feeding programs. They have all the things they want to feed the people, give out credit, give out money. My only concern is where are they going to fund it from? Because I know that we are borrowing. I've been heading for it, and we're not able to meet up with so it's more borrowing at the end of the line. If it helps us ease and helps us, if there's a process and there's some plan from us from moving forward from this point where we are borrowing heavily to be able to meet up with obligations to where we're actually productive, then so be it. If you're able to build some systems that actually follow some logical pattern, help us reduce that are not open or susceptible to corruption, then so be it. If it makes the life of the people better, both short term and hopefully doesn't add more burdens to them in the long term, so be it. So wait to see how it goes. But my guess is as good as yours. But hey, somebody has told me to be optimistic and be hopeful in this government.
I know that's
And
I
will try to
teach a man to fish rather than feeding. Just might be
Yeah,
feeding.
no, there's the time to give the man fish, but long term you need to sort out the other.
We're always short term in Nigeria, and that's a huge problem. We're not thinking about like you said, production. There's no enabling environment to do business. No power, no roads, no infrastructure. So for how long can the government sustain, whether it's 25,000 naira or 50,000 naira to 60 million Nigerians?
And who are these 60 million Nigerians?
That's
another
12 million
problem.
households we're talking about. That's at least 5 in each family. And who are they?
I don't know.
Under the vulnerable 133 multi-dimensionally poor.
So we go back to the first comment by Uade at the start.
Hey, thank you. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for your messages. Thank you for listening. And special thanks to our analysts as well, Chibuzor and Uade, for sharing their thoughts with us.
Be optimistic and be hopeful.
Zibby, you should play us one song that gives us optimism.
You know what? I'm going to do that right away. I'm going to do that. I think everyone needs a bit of that.
Leave the studio bright and happy.
All right. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.